With the aid of some household boxes, I'm going to show you the most definitive guide of how to kick early extension's butt. A massive welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I really want to talk about early extension and how you might want to understand it with a little bit more clarity. For those of you that have just joined me over on the Skillest coaching app, big thanks to the support and giving me the confidence to help you with your golf game. Early extension, it's a biggie. We've talked about it in a previous video way back when, but I really wanted to go back over some fundamental flaws in understanding, because if you don't understand where and why early extension happens, you're not going to fully appreciate how you need to go about remedying it. So what is early extension? Early extension is when the pelvis drives forwards, the upper body stands up and out, and we get that feeling where we get really log jammed down through strike. Invariably the handle elevates itself, the ball blasts itself out to the right. And before you know it, once you've felt this a few times, the next shot happens where you really start to feel your club trying to close itself over in an effort to rescue the shape of shot to the right. When we have the driver, it's even worse. The reason why it's even worse is because with the driver, we have an even longer lever arm. So the gap between the hand and the club head is even greater when we have a longer golf club. And so when we have the driver in our hands, now all of a sudden, the fishtail effect of the club head is far greater. And so as we lift our posture out, we have an even greater impact on the driver. And then we start to have these fat shots where we start drop kicking it out to the right. And of course, then the next one is very quickly a low pull hook because we try to close that club face down. The more a golfer then tries to feel like they keep themselves in posture, all of a sudden strike suddenly becomes very, very difficult. Of course, I'm just popping these on the ground here because I just really want to give you the insight into what's occurring with the longer club. And that's where most people talk about it. Oh, I really feel like I stand out of posture with my driver more than any other club in the bag, and that is why you feel it. Add that to the fact that the golf ball is a long way forwards in your stance as well, will really amplify the feels that you're getting down through strike. I covered this on a segment at Sky Sports Golf. Go check it out on their channel, Sky Sports Golf, early extension. Had some good views in there with Josh Ampman. Big shout out to Josh Ampman, who came along for the ride on that one, and it was a really good piece. So let's talk about a way of overcoming this early extension with an iron. So in a golfer's mind, setup is invariably overlooked. And I've gone on about it, and I know you probably get a little bored about it. But the balance point between the toes and the heels of the feet is our first port of call at address. Anyone that's already very toe heavy, got their glute line in line with their heel line, is already at a disadvantage. If I was going to play a game of tug of war and someone was going to try and pull me over, which invariably this golf club is trying to do because it's trying to swing out that way, not forgetting someone that's trying to swing it from the inside out, but also a golf club is fundamentally becomes really quite heavy dynamically and is trying to pull me in that direction. If I started on the toes of my feet to create balance in my shot, if I started this way and I then tried to keep myself in posture through strike, I'd very quickly start to fall over. So first things first, we need to understand that the pressure we feel through the feet, and a lot of people have expressed the analysis or the analogy standing there receiving a ball in football in the goalmouth, but of course the football's coming at me, so I'm trying to create a force that way to oppose the football, as opposed to the opposite way around with the golf club. Golf club's trying to pull me that way, and so therefore I need to create some force backwards to oppose it down through strike. But I would like to see more people 60-40 heel side bias than 60-40 or more toe side bias. So then understanding that we've got the pressure a little bit more back into our heels, we'll then start to sense that as we start to move the golf club back, we're trying to keep all of the pressure, if you're a heavy early extender, back of this line. So imagine there's a line running down the center of my feet. As I'm making a backswing, I'm really sensing how I can keep that pressure behind that line to start with. Then what happens is at the top of the golf swing, we are now going to be, whether you like it or not, you will be pulling the golf club from back here. Now let me just set up. And I make a backswing. So that's where my golf club is. Let me do that again. I'll make a top of the backswing. I'm going to hold the club in the air, and I'm now going to lower that club straight down to the floor. So from your perspective, that golf club is now back of that ball line. That club, whether you like it or not, is being pulled in that direction. You might feel like you leave your arms behind, but that golf club is fundamentally trying to go from back of the ball line to forwards of the ball line. And in doing that, it's going to be really hard for a golfer not to feel some form of move forwards from the belt line upwards. And so therefore, understanding that when we pull on this golf club and we pull it to the ball, the minute I actually start to create more forward bend in transition, and it's not offset by something that's going on down through my feet, I'm really going to start to topple myself over the golf ball. I'm going to start to create too much forward tip relative to the balance point in my feet. And at that point, if I was not swinging a golf club, I might get away with it. But of course, now the golf club comes along like thunder, and before you know it, you've fallen over a couple of times. You stand on the tee, and obviously the lads are there and they're laughing. You fall over a few times, and then before you know it, you've hit one out the shank and you popped away. So the way to oversee or overcome that falling forwards is to balance up your top half. Now we're really pushing into the early extension. So the club's moving forwards, you feel like you're toppling forwards, and now all of a sudden the top half really starts to lift up, and that's where we then start to get, as I say, this early extension and the handle rising up. So I've got a little drill here for you to give you an understanding of what you might want to sense in your golf swing to understand how you might appease those reactions. So here we have the wall of death. Now, for all of you golfers out there that are thinking about swinging from the inside, this is going to be a pretty scary proposition. Now understand, I could have just laid a little box down on the floor, just like this, but I chose not to. I wanted to have it much, much higher. And the reason for that is because when you set yourself up and you now have this box at almost chest height, you feel very, very enclosed. It feels like you are literally swinging a golf club in a telephone box. Anyone that will feel like they want to approach the ball from the inside really starts to have a sense of unnerving because they're going to smash the boxes. But not only that, it feels like my forehead is awfully close to the box, so that when I pull on the golf club and I move the handle forwards, the minute I feel the handle moving forwards, I would immediately sense that I would need to start to feel like my weight and pressure is more down through my heels at this point, which will then start to allow the golf club to drop down and in underneath me. Now look, TrackMan's not going to particularly like this because the radar is being slightly miscued and hidden with the boxes. But I think you can see the point that with the boxes, the awareness in the pull phase, because of how close this box feels to me, as I pull, it really gives me the sense that I start to create a good awareness of when I would start to make the feeling of the handle dropping underneath me a lot more obvious. The agenda is to get the ball as close to the boxes as possible so that the ball is out the middle of the club face, and if I was to hit it out the heel, I would obviously strike the box. But when you're practicing this, as you go up to the top of the backswing, just feel what it would be like if you moved your upper body closer to the box and what your reaction would have to be. Now, at the point that you start to move the club down and then you start to move the golf club on the inside, it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get that golf club to enter the golf ball from the inside and then very quickly pull it away from whacking the boxes? When you then start moving the golf club down and balancing it out with the handle moving closer to the boxes and the pressure going more into the heel of the left feet, that's the left foot that is being pushed from the left foot, from the toe of the left foot, you then really start to sense that the handle sits more underneath you, but now you will become way more aware of where the face angle is pointing. Because at the point you start to feel more sat, at the point you start to feel the handle more underneath you, you will then start to feel the club enter the golf ball more from the inside. Now at that point, if your face is out of orientation, you know exactly what's going to happen. That ball is going to start right, whack the box and go left. So understanding then, when you are fixing your early extension, if you create the environment that fixes the early extension, heels of the feet at this point in rehearsal, gap between forehead and the top box, to then make the golf club swing from inside to inside, not the best attempt on that one, you will really start to feel how susceptible you are to club face control and where the club face is pointing. But it will really start to amp up your awareness of what happens at the pull phase on the way down. You'll really start to sense if you get too much on the toes of your feet, because you'll feel the top edge of this box very, very close to your face. And then when you start to move the club down, you'll really sense where you are in space to the golf ball, because at the end of the day, our awareness of where we are in space relative to the golf ball is how we manage path more than any other way. And when you manage path with where you are in space relative to the golf ball, which the higher wall does, you will immediately start to open up your sensory perception of how to manage face angle and how important it is. I hope you've been able to see some vision of how you need to move to overcome early extension and where the ingredients might arrive from that causes it for your game. I think you'll find that's good coaching. I look forward to seeing you next time.